Go ahead.
Let me know when you're set.
Okay, we're live.
Very good. Welcome, everyone, to this regular meeting of the Holmdel Zoning Board, today being Wednesday, September 1st at 7 p.m. Jerry, read the notice.
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-10, I hereby announce that adequate notice of this meeting was provided in a notice dated January 6, 2021, and amended August 13, 2021, and was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and posted on the bulletin board of Town Hall, filed in the clerk's office and posted on the township's website.
For the record, any members of the public are here this evening. We will have a public hearing. There will be a particular time at which public comments will be welcome. Otherwise, please hold your questions, your comments until then. Roll call, please.
Ms. Avron? Here. Mr. Blumenthal?
Here.
Mr. Buffalino?
Here.
Ms. Campus? Mr. Hearn?
Here.
Mr. Orpanatopoulos?
Here.
Mr. Pesci?
Here.
Ms. Kalor? Here. And Mr. Latif?
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then stay standing for a moment of silence to honor our police and military who've been wounded or killed in action, and are also our first responders who protect us every day. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. First item of business we have this evening is a public hearing. Jerry?
Item number 1 is Holmdel Adult Care Center, LLC, in parentheticals Coles Plaza, Block 59, Lot 8, in the Route 35 Highway Overlay Zone, Zoning Board Variance 451. Applicant seeks a use variance to permit an adult daycare facility in Coles Plaza, 2145 Route 35. The zone permits a child care center, but is silent on an adult daycare center, thus making it a non-conforming use. The intent of the use is to provide a safe environment for senior citizens to spend portions of their day in a congenial atmosphere.
Mr. Gale?
Thank you, Mr. Blumenthal. Jeffrey Gale of the firm of Gale
Is there a red light showing on the mic?
Yes, there is.
Fine.
Is that a good thing?
Yes, that means it's on.
That would be a good thing.
Yes.
Jeffrey Gale of the firm of Gale and Lockman, appearing on behalf of the applicant. Before I proceed, I would look to Mr. Flager to confirm that the board has jurisdiction to notice and the publication were to the satisfaction of the attorney.
It is, yeah.
Both in
Our
order.
board secretary has confirmed that, and while we're at it, we'll read all the fees and escrows are paid today.
Yes, everything's in
Okay.
order.
Very good.
Because I'm known for being long-winded, this is going to be a tremendous change of pace for me. I have here this evening Mr. Higgins. He is a professional planner. The notice that was read to the board indicates that because municipalities, when perfecting their land use ordinances, try so hard to be precise, had they used the phrase family daycare, I wouldn't be here. But because they specified children's daycare, here I am. And if the board would swear in Mr. Higgins, he's going to hopefully provide sufficient testimony to advise the board that we meet the positive and negative criteria for a senior daycare center.
Right, one other mechanic item. I just want to raise a question. Does anybody on the board or Gail believe that anyone here has any conflict with the applicant? So we're all set. Okay,
None known
good.
to the applicant.
And I'll ask our professional also to, we'll swear both in at the same time. You swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, so everyone's been sworn, and Mr. Higgins, if you would put your credentials on the record quickly.
My name is James Higgins. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state. I've been licensed for 45 years, and I have testified before this board as an expert in the field of planning on numerous occasions over the years. I've testified before over 200 boards throughout the state. I've testified before superior courts in at least 5 counties as an expert, and I've been recognized by the Supreme Court of New Jersey as an expert in the field of planning.
Does anyone have any questions about Mr. Higgins' credentials? We'll accept your credentials.
Thank you.
Just go ahead.
Okay. Well, this is an application to provide adult daycare, which includes daycare services, it includes social services, medical assistance for senior citizens so that they can stay out of institutions, they can live at home or with loved ones, and then when they can't be taken care of during the day, they can come to this facility and utilize this facility to have the type of care and to have the type of social interaction that they need. The use was going to occupy a 4,000 square foot space in the Kohl's Plaza Shopping Center directly adjacent to the Kohl's building, the Kohl's store. And it's going to operate 5 days a week, and I think it's from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the evening. There are going to be a total of 40 clients in the building, and at any one time there will be 10 staff that will be attending to those clients. They will be brought to and from the building by bus that will be operated and supplied by the applicant. There will be 3 buses. They will have a maximum of 15 persons per bus, so that would clearly be able to accommodate the 40 clients that will be utilizing the facility. The use is in the CI district, commercial industrial district, and the overlay district, which is the Route 35 overlay housing district. Child daycare is permitted in the CI district. It's permitted in all commercial zones, all non-residential zones throughout the town by the municipal land use law. And if this were, as Mr. Gale said, if this were a child care facility, we wouldn't be here. They'd pretty much be able to move in. But it's adult daycare rather than child daycare. There are some differences. If anything, the adult daycare is much less intensive than child daycare because you don't need outdoor play areas. The adults will be brought in again by the buses that are controlled by the applicant rather than be driven by parents at various times during the morning and picked up at various times in the afternoon. It'll be very scheduled events in terms of the delivery of the clientele to the site and picking them up and taking them home again. The use, in my opinion, is an inherently beneficial use. And the reason I'm saying that is that the municipal land use law defines inherently beneficial uses. It was amended a number of years ago to define an inherently beneficial use. And it states that an inherently beneficial use is a use that, and I'll quote, fundamentally serves the public good and promotes the general welfare, unquote. And then it lists some uses that have been historically recognized as inherently beneficial uses: hospitals, group homes, those types of things. In fact, childcare, I think, is also mentioned in the municipal land use law as inherently beneficial use. But there's no documentation anywhere that says that this use itself is inherently beneficial. When you look at it and see that it is providing a necessary service, particularly when you have a situation where the population is aging, not only in Holmdel, but throughout the state and throughout the country, actually. The baby boomers are coming of age. People like myself are getting up there. I may use this facility sometime in the near future. And for the record, that was a joke. But clearly, it is an inherently beneficial use. Where you have an inherently beneficial use, that in and of itself meets the criteria for a positive, for a special reason for the granting of the variance. What's different with an inherently beneficial use as opposed to a use that's not inherently beneficial, when you do the balancing, if you have a use that's not permitted in the zone that's not inherently beneficial, you have to show that the benefits of what you are doing substantially outweigh any detriments. And you have to show that, you have to demonstrate why the use was not permitted in the zone by the ordinance. In this instance, because it's inherently beneficial, first of all, the balancing flips. The Supreme Court has said if the detriments don't substantially outweigh the benefits, then the application should be approved. And also, while the land use law says you have to show there's not going to be any substantial detriment to the zone plan or to the zoning ordinance, the enhanced burden of proof, which means you have to demonstrate why it wasn't a permitted use in the zone. You don't have to do that for inherently beneficial uses. So when I looked at this, first of all, as far as the detriments, I don't see any substantial detriments. The one possibility would be noise, and there's really no noise associated with that. Aesthetics, nothing's going to change in terms of the aesthetics of the site. There are no planned changes out on the outside of the site. In terms of traffic and parking, again, you're going to have 3 buses coming in the morning and then 3 leaving later in the day. Other than that, there's going to be the staff parking, approximately 10 vehicles. So there's not going to be any substantial impact in terms of traffic or in terms of parking. One possibility that the board may want to consider, and I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's something that you could look at, is while there's plenty of room, the width of the driveway is plenty wide for the buses to pull up to the curb, spend 10 to 15 minutes unloading the clientele and then leaving. You may want to consider a little indentation that would allow those buses to pull out of the fire lane into, off the traveled right of way. And there's also, when I rode by tonight too, clearly there's a need for a handicap ramp at that location. Other than that, I don't see any substantial negative impacts. As far as impacts on the zone plan or zoning ordinance, again, it's a very similar use to child daycare centers, which are permitted, except for the fact that the people are much older, they're no longer children. But the space itself, nothing's being changed in terms of the space itself, so that if this use were to leave the site, that space could be utilized for use that's permitted in the zone very easily, just by minor reconfiguration of the interior of the building. So when I look at this, I think there are substantial benefits. I think it's inherently beneficial. I don't see any substantial detriment whatsoever. And again, with minor site modifications, if the board feels that that's necessary, then I think it's a perfect use for the site, quite frankly. And I think it's something that's necessary given the fact that the population is aging.
You've presumably seen Ms. Keller's review letter?
Yes, I
our
have.
planner.
Yes,
Do you
I
have
have.
any comments about her letter?
No, not really. I agree with most of it.
I just have one clarification
Okay.
point, is that the initial application material stated that clients could come either via the bus or could be dropped off, but your testimony is that everyone will come via bus.
But I double-checked that with the client tonight, and he said, yes, everybody will come in those buses.
Okay. So
Because that was my understanding, that they would all come in the buses, and when I saw your letter, I wanted to double-check that to make sure I didn't misunderstand it. Yeah.
Okay, I think that was included at some point in a narrative description.
Yeah.
So-
There's a related question. You indicated 3 arriving in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, leaving in the afternoon. So that implies there's no flexibility in this daytime schedule for people arriving at different times.
The way the schedule is set up, that would be the case.
Mr. Blumenthal, it's intended that the participants, the seniors, make full use of the full day available to them. And while it is the intent of the applicant to provide buses, I don't believe we can stop someone's daughter from dropping mom off.
Exactly,
Calling us and saying, well, we don't need the bus today, and we think that means they're not coming. They're coming. She's dropping them off at 11.
Yeah.
I mean, or she's coming at 2 to pick them up.
Yeah.
That's not the intent of the manner in which my client wants to operate the facility, but I'm certainly not going to tell a parent, and keep in mind, a senior, I don't want to embarrass anybody, because I'm past this, is 65. Now, a lot of 65-year-olds would be very insulted if you told them they couldn't drive. We're going to tell them that
Yeah.
a bus is available, but if you're 65 years old and you take one of the spots, we can't do much. And I would also point out to the board, since you managed to find a way to get me to talk, that there is a depressed curb. The depressed curb is about 30 feet up from the doorway to this. It's between the Villa Pizza and the Coles. but there is a depressed curb there. I don't think the landlord's going to put in another one, is what I'm trying to politely say. And that was sort of taken into consideration when the client selected this location. The client has a lease. It's conditioned upon getting these approvals, but he has a lease, so the space is being reserved for this client, and he will make full use of the existing structure without exterior change. Because one of the concerns of your engineer our planner was, well, what are we going to do out front? Are we putting up a canopy of it? There will be no intended changes to the exterior of the building. Everything happens indoors.
Okay, well, another thing that may well happen that leads to people coming and going slightly irregularly, if somebody has a doctor's appointment
Yeah,
or
that's
whatever,
correct.
they'll be leaving, going in and out at other times of day. Let's come back to this question about the potential need for a depressed curb or ADA parking. Let's clarify what is really needed or not, and what is appropriate for the board to include in its resolution as a requirement for you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there are ADA spaces, not directly opposite the space, but sort of opposite the end of the Kohl's store, and then a little bit further in the other direction. There's one row of parking directly opposite the space that doesn't have ADA spaces, and then the rows on either side of that row of parking do have ADA spaces. And the other point I think to make too is that very few, if any, of these clientele will be driving, because if they're driving, they probably don't need to be in this facility.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not that familiar with the details of ADA rules, which should probably cover 1,000 pages. Kate, can you comment, was that going to meet the requirements for ADA?
My understanding is that as long as, the shopping center was built in conformance and there are not going to be any changes that would trigger any changes to ADA, it's acceptable in that case. And one thing we could do is that, this isn't a site plan application and we don't want to put any kind of undue burden on them, but we could just, say that it would be subject to the engineer review or something like that, if the board would like that. I think that this is one of those situations that will likely resolve itself, where, they're not people with, and especially given, I think, the timing of, this isn't going to be, they're not going to be open on weekends when there's other activity in the shopping center. As long as there is a depressed curb, somewhere nearby that provides barrier-free access, which I think that's fine with me.
Yeah, there's actually two depressed curbs, and I think they're each opposite the rows of parking and have the ADA parking in it.
Yeah, the center would have had to be.
Who's the construction people that would actually review this for that?
I don't know. They needed a certificate of occupancy. I'm not sure if it would necessitate that, but someone.
Right, so what Kate was saying is if it was important to the board, just have either Kate or Bob or somebody just verify it. The use is not creating a need for one more, let's say, ADA spot. But it was built in conformance with a site plan, so I got to believe it's compliant with whatever we did.
Absolutely.
Well, you needed another ADA spot, right? Is that difficult to get the shopping center to create another ADA spot?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
If you needed another spot.
Spot meaning?
Another ADA spot.
I don't think it's necessarily the number, it's more just the access that we were.
How close it is.
We're concerned about. Yeah, how close it is, but as long as, it's barrier-free and it was built to certain standards, then, which the testimony is that it is, that there are access points.
Why can't we just leave this issue to the applicant and the landlord? Because somebody would have to pay for it. I don't think we should have anything to do with it. If the landlord and the applicant agree one way or the other, that's up to them. I don't think that has to be under board jurisdiction, does it?
No, the only thing the board could say, it is a use variance, subject to some engineer or Lottie's verification that we don't need one extra, let's say, right in front of, as a result of this use. I can't imagine that's applicable, I'm just saying that's a possible.
What would happen there if you had it right in front of the use?
You're gonna lose
The
space.
ramps are still off to the sides, so.
And I think that this is a situation where if the applicant were to get approved tonight and were to go into the property and they found they didn't have enough ADA spaces, that could be something they could discuss with their landlord.
And usually they're built with the exact number of spaces, so if you created a new ADA space, it's probably gonna take away 2 regular spaces, That could be an issue. The
Yeah.
ramp is not right up, like was just testified, is not right across where this is anyway, so that's an issue. So probably the best spot for the ADA parking space is across from the ramp.
Right,
Yeah.
and I think the other thing to think about here is that there's going to be few, if any,
Driving.
people associated with this use that are parking in those spaces
Right.
long-term.
I agree with you.
So, and I think that, even if people are dropping off or picking up during the day, if it's primarily the bus, this is a relatively small facility where I don't think that it's going to have a major impact on any kind of circulation or anything like
Yeah.
that. So I'm fine with it, and as long as the board's comfortable, I am.
I agree.
Can we go back to the times of operation, the days of operation?
Yes.
I personally think that that should be eliminated from the resolution and not give you specific times. This way, you don't have to come back if for some reason you need to stay an extra hour or two because of whatever reason. Why do we need to limit you to those hours? Give you the flexibility of maybe deciding to be open on weekends, if family have to go somewhere, they have a place maybe to bring somebody. I think that if I was a business owner, I wouldn't want to be just locked into 5 days a week.
That
And
makes a
if
lot-
if
that makes
you're
a lot
going to
of
be
sense.
open more, that's up to you. You don't have to come in front of our board and incur
Yeah.
expenses to come here to change an hour or two.
I will agree with that. Just the one question is, I don't know if there are operating limits on the overall shopping center that would apply regardless.
That'll be on the applicant and his landlord.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It would just make it subject to any condition that was approved when the shopping center was
And by the
approved.
way, the
Yes.
7-Eleven, I think, is open 7 hours, so I don't think
Yeah,
we'll
okay.
have any hour constraints.
that's correct. So I would agree with you that there's absolutely no reason that we need to put hours constraints on there. It's not as if this is a noise-creating use.
Yeah. It's a use that's
Would you like-
compatible with the rest of the shopping center.
Yeah,
Yeah, so just, Marty, just leave that whole sentence out that they have on there.
I'll mention it specifically was eliminated from.
Yeah, okay.
yeah. Good point.
Can I just ask about Mr. Victor's background to run the
He's going to
facility?
be testifying next.
He is, all right.
Okay, fine.
So I just want to visualize this. So you said people would come and go by buses, but you can't enforce it. So I presume, just like you said, beyond 65, a lot of people would be driving. I mean, you can't stop them,
Correct.
can you? So I would think at least half of them would be driving probably on their own.
Probably.
They might at least.
Rebecca, I don't think
I don't-
that kind of facility.
No,
I don't
no.
think active adults come to this facility.
No, the people in the
People
client,
who, family members need to get them, my understanding, is people need to be gotten out of the house.
It's respite care.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're independent enough to
You
the
wouldn't
level where
be
you can
coming here.
drive.
If you're driving, you're not coming here.
oh, okay.
But they may be dropped off by a family member.
yeah.
If you're 65 and playing a round of golf, you're not coming here if you...
Okay.
Even at 80 years old, we can say the
I
same
didn't want to
thing.
be...
I think this is what's consistent with, I mean, there had been a trend for people with limited capability to be more in assisted living or nursing homes. In that case, those facilities typically provide this function. But more and more people are wanting to stay in their own home with support. And this is an example of the kind of support that might help those people.
A kind of a senior center for people that can't move around.
Yeah.
We have a senior center next door. It's the same concept.
People have to drive to get there, though.
And this,
And senior center is more socialization.
Right,
based.
but that's
It
what
has
it is in a
additional
way.
facilities.
I think it's more, to be honest, this is not new. My grandfather 30 years ago did this. This is more for people who are living with other people and they
With
need
family.
to go out of the house to give them some social interaction and family
Absolutely.
members some time away.
That's-
So
That's
that's
right.
really what it is, right?
We have to meet a certain state standard
Yeah.
to open.
Yeah,
We
that's-
have to have a full-time nurse. We have to have an administrator. I mean, it's not just like going to a social club where everybody sits down and plays cards. We have to have these extra available services for the seniors who make use of this.
yeah, they have to get a certificate of need from the State Department of Health, and then they will be routinely inspected by the state also.
I presume the applicant can answer this question when he comes up, but I'm just wondering about the financial. Is this subsidized by the government? Is this something that Medicare helps with? Or is this something that you pay the bill and that's whatever it is, it is? So you can save that for him, I guess.
If you're 65 and over and you qualify for Medicaid, they would participate in helping the individuals pay. But as far as the facility itself, that expense is borne by the applicant. There is no state program that says, don't worry, here's $30,000, fix it up. Doesn't work that way.
There is a program that will give you a little bit of money to start it off, but your assets have to be below certain levels, the respite care program. I know this because my mother-in-law's in it, so.
So are you basically saying any income level senior would be able to go to this depending on their financial criteria?
The answer is yes, but I'll let the applicant explain to you
Okay.
his background.
Fine.
Is this the only one in Holmdel?
No.
Yes.
In Holmdel.
In Holmdel, yeah.
The closest one, other than Holmdel, I believe, is it's actually in Middletown, but just before you go over the bridge into Red Bank. And in the other direction, I believe there's one in Mattawan. But there seems to be this little vacuum between Middletown, Holmdel, Hazlet that doesn't have this type of facility.
And you came up with the number 40 based on the square foot area and the stuff?
Based on the number of bathrooms.
Okay.
You get 10 per bathroom.
Okay.
If you look at the floor plan we provided, we gave you 4 bathrooms, that's 40 people.
Okay.
And the square footage of the space.
I just have one more question just about logistics. So the buses would not be stored on the property during the day, or would they?
That I don't know.
Okay, we'll leave that for the applicant as well. So, okay, I have no more questions for Mr. Higgins.
Does anybody have any further questions at this moment for Mr. Higgins? Go ahead, Mr. Dale.
Can we ask if anyone from the public has any questions for Mr. Higgins? Because he's going to run out the door and he won't be available in 5 minutes.
No, I can hang around for a little bit.
Well, no, if there's no questions.
Okay, fine. Is there anyone from the public that has any questions on the testimony given by Mr. Higgins? Seeing none? Does anyone from the public have any comments on his testimony? Also seeing none. Okay.
Okay.
I just didn't want to hold you up, Jim. Take care.
Okay. Okay.
You right over here.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
This is Victor Thomas. He is the applicant, meaning he is the managing member of the LLC making this application. We could have him swear.
Swear?
Yes.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, just spell your name for the record.
Thomas Victor.
Your first name is Thomas?
First name Thomas, last name Victor.
Thank you.
I think I did it backwards.
I think you had it backwards on the notes.
Again, proving I'm not.
So there's a spot for you, don't worry.
Thank you. Thomas, is it correct that in 2011, you and your wife, who is a licensed pharmacist, opened the Brunswick Square Pharmacy in East Brunswick? Is that correct?
Yes.
And as a result of opening that pharmacy, she functioned as a licensed pharmacist. And what were your responsibilities and duties at the pharmacy?
I was a general manager for Brunswick Square Pharmacy. Me and my wife Marion, we started the pharmacy in 2011. We were serving our clients as far as medications need. We also we were providing extra care, like we were open almost 24/7. Everybody of our customer has our cell phone number. We were providing counseling for their medication at any time of the day. We were also were dealing with the patients that they live in senior homes, and also we were making delivery for those who attend the adult daycares in the surrounding area like Monroe, Mattawan, East Brunswick. So we are familiar with the adult daycare business. I also had the chance to manage a Mattawan adult daycare for 6 months until they found a manager there. So I'm familiar with the process, the procedure of the adult daycare, how they run it.
In 2018, did you and your wife open a second pharmacy?
Yes.
Where was that, sir?
In Holmdel, New Jersey, called Holmdel Pharmacy and Daily.
And where was it?
It's 487 Middle Road in Hazlet, but it's Holmdel municipal.
Hazlet mailing Holmdel property.
But yes.
Where is this again? What's the address again?
It's 487 Middle Road, the corner Middle Road and South Laurel. It's a B&B Sweet Shop, former B&B Sweet Shop.
Okay. Too familiar.
Did we do something wrong there?
No, we have just heard an application about the property across the street, which has
Yes.
been a
Yes.
tire store and has now becoming a gas station and a convenience store.
Well, that has nothing to do with Mr. Victor.
No, so we just know the location.
I got you. In regard to this location, do you operate this the same way you do your East Brunswick store?
Yes, yes,
And do you also take care of adult daycare centers by supplying them with their medications?
yes,
things
we
like
will,
that?
yes.
And it's my understanding that at this point in time, you and your wife have determined that, based on your experience in these two drugstore facilities, you now want to expand into adult care.
Right,
And you have leased space at 365 Cranberry Road in East Brunswick.
Yes.
To set up a facility similar to what you're asking for here in Holmdel.
right,
And basically, both the East Brunswick address and this Holmdel location would be ancillary or part of your drugstore clientele listings.
right,
So what you're trying to do is you're trying to expand your drugstore counseling into a fixed facility.
right. Exactly.
Any questions from the board?
My financial questions I brought up earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a budget for 250,000 as a startup expenses, and the way the clients pay is either approved by Medicaid pay them, so we have to apply for Medicaid provider when we get the license, the certificate of need from the Department of Health, then we can apply for Medicaid provider. The Medicaid pay up to $80 a day to cover the food cost, the nurse, the medical counseling, all this service.
Does Medicaid or any governmental agency supply you with any setup funds for you to open this facility?
The startup expenses, no. No.
That's, I think, what your question
Well,
is.
no, I was looking for the latter. What you
Oh,
said.
okay, I'm sorry.
In other words, let's say I have a senior who wants to come there.
Right.
When I come in your office and say I have a senior, what's the process? Does he have to go apply to Medicare, or do you do that? How does this
We
work?
help our customer to apply for Medicaid. We also give them the time to use our facility or attend the facility until they get their Medicaid. So we serve them all this time without any cost until they get their Medicaid approved. So we help them with everything.
What if the person is not Medicaid eligible?
They have the option to pay from their pocket, or if they have any other, like sometimes the county provide the funding for this kind of service.
What is your initial cost for someone that doesn't qualify for
Your
Medicaid?
price.
Daily, yeah.
We like any other centers, they just charge $50. Yeah, $50 a day.
Well, so you're getting
Said
less from
$50
them
a
than
day.
you are from Medicaid?
50 a day?
That doesn't sound right to me, no.
50 a day, not full day. Just some centers they have part time, so they attend $50 a day part time.
And if he wanted to come full-time and he doesn't qualify for Medicaid, what would you be charging him?
We're not gonna charge them like full, like maybe we charge them the same amount of Medicaid pay, the $80.
The same 80?
Yeah, the same 80.
Now,
Yeah.
you've talked about a certificate of need, and I
Yes.
certainly heard about that, but I'm not at all familiar with what's behind it. Do they in fact verify that there is a need?
No, certificate.
Yeah, it says it really doesn't
We're
have
getting way
anything to do
far
with it.
afield here. This isn't really our.
Okay.
The certificate of need is basically just the state license.
Yes,
It's similar as what assisted livings or other
Right.
providers require.
Exactly.
And they don't allow an overabundance in one area.
Yeah, exactly. It really just says that there's not an overabundance, and essentially,
Since there's none in Holmdel.
it's slightly relevant to these variants, because if they don't get that, they can't open. So
Mhm.
that's another set of controls.
Yeah, okay. Is that the completion of your testimony?
Thomas, you're going to be the director of this facility?
Yes,
That means you're responsible for hiring the social worker, the administrator, caregivers,
Nurse,
drivers?
yes.
That's your responsibility? Who's actually responsible for the day-to-day center? Would that be the nurse?
the nurse.
Mm-hmm.
There's been testimony relative to the fact that you are going to bus people there and bus them home. Can an individual, if they insist, drive their own car to the facility?
They can, yes.
You
they
can't
can.
stop them.
No, we cannot stop.
Now, tell me about these buses. Where are these buses you own? Do you rent them? Where
Yeah,
are
it's
these-
owned by the center.
Okay. But you haven't purchased them yet?
No, not yet.
And you will also hire the drivers?
Yes,
And these drivers will have to know CPR?
they have to have a CPR license in case of emergency. So beside their driver license, we send them to a place. If they don't have CPR license, we send them for a day to get the CPR license and get trained on any kind of emergency.
They drop the people off in the morning. Where do the buses go for the rest of the day?
Stay in the parking lot.
You can take them all the way far away from the building?
Yeah, we can.
You
Yeah.
you could pack them in the back of the building, too.
We can. Yeah, we can do that.
This has a back entrance, too, to this facility.
Right. Yes.
It's really anywhere that it wouldn't
Yeah,
interfere with
but I
any
mean,
other loading.
if it was unsightly, they could just put it in the back there, and this way nobody sees it.
Right.
The loading zone, let's call it that.
Yes.
area.
Exactly. Yes.
Now that's all that I have.
I have a question about the bus. Earlier, you talked about indentation in the curbing to allow the bus there. I think that's another thing that, I don't know if Marty put it in the record, that we shouldn't get involved. I think that should be between the landlord and yourself.
And
I'm
the
not
construction
I'm
people.
not disagreeing with it, but I don't want to impose in the resolution an undue expense to you or the landlord that's not necessary. So I think you have to discuss it, and maybe we even try it for a little while and see if you can use the existing. I looked on Google Maps just to see what it looks like.
Yes.
And I see it is very wide there, so you could easily fit it there.
Yes.
So the question, I think, is that it shouldn't be in our resolution, it should be a landlord-tenant.
Right.
Or the traffic safety officer or somebody like that.
Maybe, but the scat buses stop and drop people off there, so what's the difference?
It gives us a little bit of an extra just control, so maybe the resolution will say subject to approval of Holmdel traffic safety officer. Covers it.
I'm comfortable, would traffic safety officer have jurisdiction over the private property?
I don't know.
No.
No, and the other problem
I
is,
don't think so.
if somebody determines they should have one, it, in theory, might be an amended site plan.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it's not as simple as putting a ramp in.
I think that, that this is again, as
I
I
withdraw that.
I think it's a good point, but I think that what I said before is that if this, as long as there's access from the bus to the property, and if this doesn't work, if there's an issue here, it will affect the applicant. They'll be the one who has the problem. If there's issues with getting clients from the bus to through the site.
And like Marty said, this would affect the whole site plan, so that the landlord would have to come and deal with us.
Which he will not. He made that clear when I negotiated the lease.
They want to keep things simple.
Yeah, and I think that the number, again, I think that the number of clients here is relatively small. Some of these facilities have several hundred clients at once, and I think that's a different scale than what's being proposed.
Emergency service vehicles would need to be counted here, right? To have access, right?
Well, there's plenty of access there for us.
Yeah, because the age population that's in this facility might require
We'll
something.
probably
yeah.
be going there.
Well, think
Yeah.
about it, it's that front area in front of the shopping
Yeah.
center.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
plenty
so-
of room for
So if that's good, anything should be good, right?
We've been up and down those stores plenty of times.
Okay.
Around the back, I'm not sure that there's ADA access, so that would probably be an issue,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
because
I've never been around
the
that.
way that their floor plan showed, deliveries such as restaurants would go through there, or food, but it would involve a narrow corridor, and it probably
It
isn't
wouldn't work.
very free.
Have you been at the back, Dimitri?
I've never been.
Yeah,
Dimitri?
It's just loading docks back there. There are some
He's an
parking.
EMS driver.
They have included a site plan, so you can kind of see what the back of the building looks like.
But are those ADA?
I don't
I don't
remember to
think so.
tell you 100%.
No, I don't think it's ADA.
Usually
not.
back there.
It's
Okay.
more for employee parking and loading, merchandise.
Well, there's been adequate room near Kohl's between Villa and Coles in that parking area there. There's been adequate room to be some distance from the building and have 2 or 3 parking spaces available. It will not impact the...
Yes, I mean, there've been other tenants in that location, and it hasn't been an issue.
I've never seen that parking lot anywhere near 3/4 full.
I would also point out to the board, if any of you have senior citizens and you're thinking of signing them up, there is a limit of 40. Please don't call up my client and you were the 45th and he has to say no, and then you call me up at my office and it's my fault. But there is a limit.
So is that it, first come, first served?
Yes.
Daily?
No,
Or is it by weekly? Like
By week.
You mean the number of attendant, like in the facility?
when you sign up somebody, do you sign them up for a week, for a month? How long is their membership good for?
It's week by week schedule,
Okay.
weekly schedule.
All right, so once you hit 40, that's it?
Yes,
That week is
yes.
done.
Until
Yes.
someone else
Yes,
says,
it's a weekly
I'm not
schedule.
renewing.
Yes.
And just to be clear, so, because I know there's a lot of talk of buses, the buses you're talking about are van-style buses?
Yes, yes.
Right, so it's not full-size buses?
No, it's like
We can
15
several of them
passengers.
in that parking
Yes,
lot.
yes,
And have very little impact on the lot.
right.
Does any board member have any other questions or comments for the applicant? Kate, do you have anything? Jeffrey, would you care to summarize what we're dealing with?
I would only be repeating myself. I think the board has full understanding of what we're trying to accomplish.
Public, yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, yep. Any member of the public have any questions or comments on the applicant's testimony? Or any comments on the application of any nature? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the public hearing. Any final questions or comments from board members? Is there a motion?
I would just suggest, and defer to Kate, that if the board wants, it can make an explicit finding that this use is the equivalent of inherently beneficial, and therefore, when you vote, your standard is, for lack of a better term, an easier standard. I'm not sure you want to go there. I mean, I think there's probably enough criteria here to do either way, but,
I'll make a motion.
okay. I didn't know if Kate had an opinion on that, though. I don't want to create precedent if we don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to the board, and I think that was the testimony that Mr. Higgins presented. He addressed the negative criteria, he addressed the kind of balancing test, and so I think that if the board were to, approve this application, it would be under, it could be under that jurisdiction.
I agree with that, and if anything, I said it earlier that we should have, at the end of our year, when we send our report to the Township Committee, we put in their amendment to the existing to change it from child to family, as Mr. Gale mentioned earlier. I think that's an excellent suggestion. I think these type of facilities are going to be increasing.
I agree with you.
Sorry about, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, Dimitri, not
Okay.
You just raise your hand.
I was trying to make him feel better.
I make a motion that we find that this is an inherently beneficial use, and as such that we grant the applicant's request for the use variance. This is the need for the public, based on all the testimony that we've heard, and the need for an adult facility of this type.
I second it.
Second?
And just add, we're eliminating the hours and the days. Just add that in the
Yes.
motion.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Avron?
Yes.
Mr. Buffalino?
Yes.
Mr. Hearn?
Yes.
Mr. Pesci?
Yes.
Mr. Panatopoulos?
Yes.
Mr. Blumenthal?
Yes.
And Ms. Kalor?
Yes.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you so
And I
much.
particularly appreciate you calling out,
Thank you,
coming
thank
out in the
you.
rain.
Good luck.
As I anticipated we'd be
Good luck.
here tonight,
Thank you so
and
much.
I'm happy you accommodated my client.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Wish us luck. Thank you.
Being on the second item on tonight's agenda is a memorializing resolution which Loretta sent us confirming that the zoning board annual report for 2020. Do I have a motion to approve that, or are there any additions or corrections to the resolution that Loretta presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Don?
Jerry.
Jerry.
Roll call on that?
Ms. Avron?
Yes.
Mr. Buffalino?
Yes.
Ms. Campus? Mr. Hearn?
Yes.
Mr. Pesci?
Yes.
Mr. Panatopoulos?
Yes.
and Mr. Blumenthal.
Yes. Any professional reports, anything? No, I just have one brief comment. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 22nd. This completeness waivers and hearing on the Dementia Center proposal for the Potter Farm. There have been some community concerns expressed about this, and it is quite conceivable that we have a large audience. I've discussed this with a number of people, including today with Sharon, with Marty, as to how to best handle that kind of situation. One thing that we'll, at a minimum, do is what we've done tonight is spread the tables out, spread the people out, and put some signs on some of the chairs. We can't remove those chairs because this is a courtroom, and per state law, the chairs have to be bolted together. If there is concern that we don't have enough space here, well, let me back up one step. One key question is that notices for this need to be done by the 11th. So Loretta needs to know exactly how we're going to handle the meeting so that the applicant can write the appropriate notice. One backup possibility is, if we're concerned about the size of the audience, is to move over to the community center. One issue with that Sharon raised, we could do that, is that prior to COVID, the Township Committee adopted an ordinance, and it's not an ordinance and not a resolution, requiring live streaming of these meetings. And the facility for that doesn't currently exist over in the community center, but somebody potentially could do it by holding up a cell phone or doing something, so we could potentially get around that.
Can you just open the back door?
That would allow a few more people, but it makes spacing more difficult, clearly.
So look, I obviously don't know, but we've had a couple of very large applications before this board, including the gas application. Twice, and the church, and even with those, which
Well, the most recent one was all done by Zoom, which is the other option that we could fall back to.
I personally think that if you open that up, and I've been on this board for many years, and we've had lots of applications that are more contested than this, and we never filled up everything.
Well, let me just finish, please. One other concern that Sharon has is, because of the worsening Delta situation with COVID, that any day the governor might come down with new rules limiting indoor meetings. And we don't know what he's going to do, and he doesn't tell us in advance as to how that's going to be. So that's a concern. I did ask Marty this afternoon to talk to the applicant's attorney to see how they would feel about how to handle some of this, and he didn't reach him, so we don't fully know yet.
I mean, I would just say that if obviously we can't control anything in our world right now, so if the rules change, then we'll have to roll with that. And
correct.
We have to, if we didn't have enough notice, then that meeting might have to be postponed, and then we'd have to go back to a Zoom.
I just wanted everyone to be aware of it. Certainly many of our concerns are, first comes for health and safety, and we also want to be fair to the applicant.
So Ralph, the public can't come in on Zoom? Can't we have it so we are here and...
We don't have the capability, we do not have the capability for what you would call a hybrid.
Okay.
In that, in this room, there's only one camera.
Okay.
With Zoom, you sort of have a camera per person.
Okay.
And so...
When you were asking for public comment today, I thought you were asking them.
No.
No, there is,
Right.
the meeting is live streamed, but it's one way only.
Okay, right.
You
The
can-
challenge with that just becomes like showing the exhibits and making sure that all the testimony is heard and things of that nature.
Perfect. He Ralph could have said instead, he did absolutely correct. He could have said instead, there's no public here. So he said members of the
Right.
public. That's, I think, where you're at.
For record, right.
Just for the
Right,
record, the
right.
public has
All
to
right.
have, the public that's here.
Okay, all right.
I
Correct.
think we should have the meeting in person. Unless something changes, then we'll deal with it. We had the other applicant that did Horizon, that they postponed their whole application got delayed for at least a year because of the COVID, which is not our fault, but, you know, something like this is an in-person type of meeting. It's not a backyard pool that you can look on it.
I
It's
appreciate,
intense.
Dimitri, that you, and Valerie, and some others are strongly favor having it in person, but there are others that have health and safety concerns, and we need to take that in consideration. So we do have a few days yet before a final decision will get made. If other input comes, if the governor does something, we'll have to take that into account.
And Ralph, you know, the applicant has to notice in the paper, and that's really in 2 weeks, not 10 days. So they're going to have to get their notices out by no later than the 8th. But having said that, you know, if it becomes a crowd issue, we can accept jurisdiction and then adjourn, and then to another location or another time, but not that evening. And that's just what we're going to have to do. And the applicant will just have to understand. And of course, if the rules change, no one can control it.
Correct.
I mean, I think that we should have a vote now on where we're gonna meet, and then if circumstances change, like the governor changes the rules, then obviously we'll be notified, and the location will have to change. We don't have a choice in that,
Right.
but
Or people can't get in because all the seats are taken.
Could we publicly just maybe can we just notify the public that the first 45 people or 50 people, you know, is who we have room
Well,
for?
but it has to be
You
open to the
can't do
public,
that.
so you can't exclude anybody, so.
The
If it's
problem is
that,
you can't limit the public.
if it's that crowded, we would have to adjourn
The
and.
school has the technology, but we can't use it.
We don't have it here.
I don't think that, look, I could be wrong, I just don't think that the number of people that show up, first of all, people generally don't show up, right? It's a night meeting, they have other things going on. I'd be surprised if you got as many people. I understand that their community has concerns, and some of those people may come, and others may not. So I think we do what we're going to do, and we're good at rolling with the punches. We've gotten really good at that as a society. We'll figure it out. Do you want us to make a motion?
Can you open those doors too? Other
No.
doors too?
Police office.
I mean, we're already resolution to be public, so we don't need to do anything special.
No.
No, and I would just, as a courtesy, let, obviously, the applicant's attorney know something possibly could happen with the crowd size, and that may impact
Yeah.
how they start. But we can at least accept jurisdiction, so if the notice is fine, and get that piece out of the way. And maybe we can even do completeness, because completeness does not require public input or questions. So we could possibly do that, again, if the crowd's too large to continue with the public portion. So there are things we can still do. And
Fair enough. So I just wanted people to be aware that there are some issues that we may have to deal with, and we'll, as Valerie said, we'll have to roll with it.
Dimitri has to go serve the good.
Yeah, this is good. Okay, any other business for this evening? None? There's a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second? Did you hear somebody say something?
No,
We're at-
but Jerry had that.
I'll make a motion. We're done.
it was already right in second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone want to stay here? No. Okay, good. Thank you all. Good night.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to buckle up again.
Your comments about